That is amazing.
Yes. Didn't even call you.
Yeah.
I know it was. I don't even know. It's not.
But I guess Death Valley is really something to visit.
Am I watching?
No, it's still a few. I have to light the spark.
Yeah, my I realized as I'm driving my
So
I know, whatever. What's your name, Ted? You know, I used to wear a wristwatch, and then somebody said to me, "You realize that you're like handcuffing yourself with your brains?" I never thought about it that way.
I look at my steps more than I look at time.
Okay, yeah, so but for you, it's a functional thing. It's very functional, right? But for me, that was my mental attitude about it too. Is that I was like, okay, I gotta get there on time. You know, so for me, it was very. So I'm like, perhaps I should rethink that.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. I mean, I guess I check it, but it doesn't.
It doesn't drive you. Oh,
I'm trying here.
okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, for me, it was mostly conversation.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's
I don't feel
take her boots off.
That's really. I have closed doors.
Yeah. No. Because then you got to do something with all
You guys need this?
No.
Oh,
no.
You don't know, usually go to sleep at like 7 o'clock, it's 9
Right. Yeah, that was something at Heathrow, with that electrical outage.
Yeah.
But she didn't cry much. I wouldn't want to be the people in charge of
And they was all like,
everybody had to go back here.
Yeah. What are we doing here? 10:27, I Where's everybody?
We're sleeping in. Yeah.
You're so sweet lately, is you just stay
My
in the
goodness.
guest room and just hang out.
Maybe they're just gonna watch. No, not too many people
Oh,
out there yet.
oh, Todd's online, okay.
Well, I woke up before they.
My brother says he watches us on YouTube now instead of
Actually, I didn't sleep very well at all.
Yeah, because I haven't seen his name up there yet.
Yeah.
So it doesn't do both at the same time?
It does. We're on Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook all at the same time.
Oh my
We're
God.
live right now
How is that? How do you all
with
three?
Restream. So we just send it to one application and it splits it to 3 different ones.
There's some pastels.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we did, thank you.
You get a comfortable chair.
Oh, you're gonna try Sherry first. Oh, we forgot to put the chair over there for Wesley.
He's able-bodied.
He's able-bodied, right, he can get it. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Wow, remember in the 40s and 50s where they had ladies for size?
Yes.
From that era.
Okay.
My old favorite, Irene Finney.
If you leave the flame on it for a few seconds, it does.
Yeah, and I gotta do it sideways, I remember
Where'd you get
that.
those candles, Dollar Tree or something?
Kathy gets them online someplace.
Yeah, come and share them with us, yes.
Oh, you
What?
got about 20 now. When I was in Wisconsin.
That's gonna drive some OCD people crazy.
Yeah. Did I say happy birthday to your daughter before you did?
Yes.
Her husband buys his underwear, buys everything. Just doesn't want to do anything.
That's okay. She talked to me 3 times. I used to get my jeans on my
I always say that, I'm with Brian.
and then have them hang I like anymore.
Being a tutor, you get to, tiny.
So I thought, I'll try Amazon because I know exactly what size.
Brand and everything like that.
Yeah, the first 3 times we were on the phone today.
Yeah, and sometimes if I can do it, at 10:30, there's a retail. On Amazon, if it's like a name of company, then
You didn't say happy birthday to me until I got to the cabinet. On our birthday. That's what you said on the phone.
We just put them in pots for our convenience.
Let's say, okay, just hanging out. Okay.
We're good at grindolins. Grindolins. I've heard
anniversary.
We will sing the gathering song number 403, Spirit of Truth of Life of Power. We'll sing it twice through. I'll just give a short intro.
Thank you. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So Brian is at a farming conference today, which he was lucky enough to get into after being on a wait list. So I'll be leading the structural parts. And my name is Dawn, and I use the pronouns she, her. So we want to welcome everyone, including our online guests. There is an offering plate in the back to donate. There's also online links for those of you who'd like to donate online. So we do try to keep the service to 1 hour, but sometimes we go over, and if you have a need to excuse yourself, please do that without any judgment from the rest of us. So we do ask that after the sending insight that you could please be seated and quiet to give audience and give everybody else a chance to listen to the postlude and think in relative quiet. So today we welcome Sana Del Corazon, speaking with us about trusting in community. On March 30th, the president and vice president of UTS will be here to present. And those of you who missed Friday's service, we did get our first introduction to the UU shared values, and if you want details, see the pig and the pinwheels in the back. So we are looking for volunteers to work on the security plan committee, and we will be electing a new treasurer for next year. See Kelly for details on that. Please remember to sign up for treats online. There will be an OWL, Our Whole Lives facilitator training at FUS in April, and again, please see Kelly if you want details about that.
And I do have the dates and times now.
And we'd like to send at least 2 people from DUUC, so please do that. A couple other announcements. Please save the date for Saturday, April 19th. Our congregation is going to be doing a program as part of the nationwide UU Climate Revival. So please save that date. That'll be in the morning of Saturday, April 19th. Also, we're considering doing a name change for the congregation, and if you want to be part of that name selection team, please let me know, and we'll put you on the name selection team. And now, is there any other announcements? Kathy?
I have a couple of social justice announcements. April 5th, there will be a hands-off protest at the state capitol at noon. That is run locally by Minnesota Women's March and Indivisible Twin Cities. And I am still collecting funds to do culturally specific pantry packs and spice packs for food shelves through the United Way. Hoping to do that, get them all done this week. So if you'd like to donate money to that, please see me today. And I think we're at over $300, so yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Sunday, April 13th in the afternoon, my chorus mixed company singers will be singing with a high school group from Benilde St. Margaret's, I think, and also another group at the Parkway Theater in downtown Minneapolis. And let me know if you'd like to go. It's going to be a really good show.
And Saturday, April 5th is at 3 o'clock is the Kathleen and Friends Music Gala. So please let me know if you want to attend. And there's a, small donation asked, which is money that's going to be donated to NAMI Mental Health.
Anybody else? Okay, so now I invite us to, get rid of the mundane junk stuff and take a couple deep breaths and clear our mind while we listen to this morning reflection by Kathleen. To do our opening words. And are we ready? Oh, I've got opening words first. You have beloved community moment?
I have whatever one we need as long as I get the right screen.
You want me to? I can switch it up. Okay. So these opening words are inspired by Hug the Prayer by Jennifer Pratt-Walter from the UUA.org. The thing about prayer is that it involves trust in ourselves and in one another.
Theology aside, prayer is about centering ourselves on trusting in community, like collectively hugging the prayer itself.
Hug the prayer in trust before it leaves your body. Float it along like murmuring leaves.
Deepen the prayer to minnows, to starfish in a wordless sea. Water it into the soil, guiding every earthworm and root.
Our prayers are both journey and destination. We trust in our hearts that they will find our names already alight.
In the cosmos, our widest community, the somewhereness of ourselves before speech or heart, before minnow or earthworm, before the eyeless leaves.
Even if there is no target or deity, may the words of our hearts roll on like numbers, living monuments with no taste of an end.
May we hug our prayers close, with faith and trust in our wide and close communities. And then may we fling wide their cages so that the wings of freedom may rise all around.
Therefore, in the spirit of prayer and trust, we light this chalice together and say,
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers, to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, to serve you, Spirit of freedom, in the fullness of community.
If you would please rise as you are able, we're going to be singing our opening hymn. This is the day for new beginnings. The words will be on the screen.
Oh, that's right, we don't have this.
Oh, it isn't? Oh, all right.
So I've got that and that.
This one.
It's not.
It's hard to write and see.
Then you can't see the words.
We can't, yeah, do the other one, yeah.
Here we go.
This is a day for new beginnings, time to remember and move on, time to believe what love is bringing, laying to rest the pain that's gone. So let us with the Spirit's daring step from the past and leave behind our disappointment, fears, and grieving, seeking new paths unsure to find. In faith we gather round this table to send a light of love to all. This is a day of new beginnings. This love is making all things new.
Please be seated. Now we're going to have our beloved community moment. This is adapted from various readings from Susanna Weiss. Today's beloved community moment brings us to pause and to acknowledge the complex internal suffering of many women. We know that women have been long oppressed, marginalized, and victimized by society, by violence, by misogyny. We also know that internalized misogyny plagues many. Internalized misogyny is when women subconsciously project sexist ideas onto other women and even onto themselves. Internalized misogyny does not refer outright to a belief in the inferiority of women. It's not that simple. Rather, it refers to byproducts of the societal view that cause women to shame, doubt, and undervalue themselves and others of their own gender. However, we acknowledge that it can be difficult to identify internalized misogyny. As independent as we think we may be as women, we have many preconceived notions about how a woman should exist that stem from societal expectations and gender norms. It is important to be conscious of this and to be conscious of our thoughts and ideas, not only about other women, but also in regards to ourselves. Remember, empowered women empower women. We at Dakota UU stand for the empowerment of women and attempt to live that commitment out in every facet of our ministries, including going to the rally. May we continue to empower women and to care for women who struggle with internal conflicts concerning power and patriarchy. So that ends our beloved community moment. Now we're going to move on to joys and concerns. This is a time to share your personal joys and concerns, coming up to light a candle. And if anyone online has a joy or concern, let me know and I'll light a candle for you.
I have a joy and a concern. I'm going to start with the joy. My aunt turned 70 today, so I'm so excited for her, even though she's not quite as excited. It's better than the alternative. Yeah. And really sadly, I'm shocked to tell you this. My sister lost her home on Friday morning. It burned down. Yeah, she lives in Vadnais Heights, so this is for her, and we're hoping that she's okay. Her roommate was okay. Everybody's okay, but the whole place is gone.
Happily, Annabelle reminded me that it's our youngest daughter's birthday today, Megan. When we joined the church, we were still carrying her around, and she is 29.
She was 9 months old, I think.
I think so, yeah.
I have a joy and a concern. The joy being is 2/3 of our family are recovered for the most part. Steph is still home feeling under the weather today. That's the concern. But the joy is Belle and I are almost 100%. Yay! My wife will be there shortly, I'm sure.
My son will be 11 on Friday, so I've been a mom almost 11 years.
Right, it's the anniversary of mother.
Yes.
Well, this being spring break, we're gonna have the joy of taking care of grandkids several days.
Oh, nice.
And that's always fun, but when the day's over, they're like 7 to 11, it's like, whew, boy, that was hard. I'm gonna sit in my recliner for a while. So it's, I guess, the joy of having family close.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna do one more. Joy and concern. Okay. My divorce was finalized 2 weeks ago, so that's both a joy and concern.
And I guess there's somebody online?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Todd?
Go ahead.
Is that on mute?
Yes, he did.
Megan just unmuted.
Oh, and Megan too, okay. Talk somebody.
Yeah,
Oh.
Megan?
Go ahead, Megan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I want to light a candle for Laura. Laura she's not a blood relative. We have a common cousin. She's his cousin on David's father's side, and I'm cousin on David's mother's side. And she's the only person left out in California to help him. And she's been calling me, bouncing ideas off of me. And I just feel,
You're on video. What?
I feel very sorry that she is having to carry this burden by herself. Our cousin is mentally ill, and it's very, it's a huge job that she's stepped up to, and I just appreciate it so much, and she deserves a candle.
Todd, did you have something to share?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to say hi to everyone, and I'm very thankful. It's my 36th year as a text preparer. I have been blessed with a career that I thoroughly enjoy, and I am at my desk working right now. Good to see everybody.
It's that time of year.
Are you working very hard, though?
Right.
Anyone else? All right, so I'm going to light one final candle for all those joys and concerns that remain unspoken. May we know that whatever befalls us in life, we are held in the loving embrace of this community. And now we say together, for all these joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken, we hold you in our hearts. Okay, and now the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time to introduce our speaker, Sana Del Corazon. And I don't know her as personally as Brian does, so I did my little internet research, and this is what I can tell you. She is a dog lover. She is a student of life, trained therapist, community builder, writer, teacher, mother, and wisdom seeker. She is an alchemist who shares her knowledge, wisdom, and skills to help bring about deep personal transformation. Most importantly, she is a healer, and she's here to talk to us about trusting in community. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me back. I think I was here in January? Yes. Okay. This month's Soul Matters theme is Living Love Through the Practice of Trust. For those that don't know, Soul Matters is a network of Unitarian Universalist congregations who follow the same theme so they can more easily share small group materials such as worship, sermon, music, children's education resources. Each month, Soul Matters puts a small group of guides designed to inspire deep listening and spiritual discernment. Have you had Soul Matters groups here? Okay.
But I've heard of it.
Okay. Its central goal is to foster circles of trust and deep listening. And I had the opportunity and pleasure of both participating in Soul Matters as a participant and facilitator when I was a member of First Unitarian of Des Moines in Iowa over 10 years ago when I had a newborn. These groups were deeply intimate and personal, and I'm still connected to some of the people from the first group I joined. This is not an advertisement for small groups, or maybe, or Soul Matters, though both are excellent ways to build community and trust within congregation. In this month's packet, which invites participants to practice the practice of trust, it says this: in religious circles, talk of trust most often revolves around having faith that will look after us. For instance, our Christian friends sing hymns about God watching over us and keeping an eye on the sparrow. Our Jewish friends lift up the Exodus story to encourage faith that God will help us make our way even when things look bleak. Likewise, prayer practice for our Muslim friends is all about reminding oneself that you are in Allah's safe hands. We UUs voice similar sentiments through the language of trusting, a love that will not let us go. This call to trust life comes to us as a gift. After all, it can be quite easy to convince ourselves that life is a foe. So we need our faith communities to restore our faith that life is ultimately a friend. We need the reassurance that when we fall, we can count on being picked up again. We know this kind of trust, or any kind of trust, is not easy. Brian reminded us in his latest blog that everybody read, right? How hard it is to trust, period, but especially in difficult times such as these, when many of us question our neighbors, our family members, or even our friends who voted against our well-being and democracy, for that matter. Like Brian, I too struggle with trusting people who are supposed to love me unconditionally. And unfortunately, religious communities haven't fared any better. You can search the news on any given day and find examples of religious communities and their leaders who act anything but loving, with examples of sexual, financial, and relational misconduct. So I know that the irony doesn't pass me, that I prepared to talk to you about trust in community, particularly faith communities, where there is an overwhelming evidence at our fingertips of how faith communities and their leaders breach trust more frequently than we can imagine. No religious tradition is immune to this phenomenon. There will always be people who seek to exert power over others, regardless of their theological beliefs. There will also be groups of people who profess to love, but act anything but loving. There will always be people who will not only breach our trust and act unloving, but then work to cover up and blame us and divide us. It is no wonder that trust in religious institutions has so diminished in the past few decades. This made Brian question, how can I trust anyone if I couldn't trust my parents and couldn't trust my religious community to look out for me? How could I believe that I was being held in any sort of loving embrace? We all know the elusive nature of trust. Trust that has been built slowly over years can fade quickly. Trust must be nurtured and protected. So how can congregations protect themselves and their relationships and the trust that holds us together? Reverend Marcus Hartleaf says Unitarian Universalists are mosaic makers. He writes, we are people who bring together the broken pieces of our histories and the shining pieces of our seeking, and piece by piece we create a mosaic religion. Our tree of life is found in the stories of our living tradition, the bead from a transformational moment of worship at a youth conference, the bit of paper stamped with the blazing emblem of the Unitarian Service Committee that saved lives during World War II, the button or patch on a backpack that proudly proclaims the first justice issue that lit our souls on fire, But our mosaic making tells another story too, one that is often more difficult to see, one that is essential to the purpose of religious community, one that lies not in the beautiful and broken pieces, but in the grout. See grout, that chalky stuff that is squeezed between the cracks of tiles? In a mosaic, the grout holds the image together, unifying disparate pieces into a whole. The grout of a community takes years to lay and settle. Grout happens in board meetings and committee meetings and endless emails and slow-moving institutions. It is in weekly potluck shared by neighbors, a ride to church, and a coffee hour in the social hall or here. While the folks who show up for church only on Christmas and Easter will hopefully enjoy beauty of the mosaic they find, they may never know the power of the grout that holds us through all the seasons of life. Trust is a key ingredient in the grout that holds all of our different shapes and sizes and colors together. The components of grout that holds a congregation together are the worship, the work of management, the social events, the programs. And when we mix all those things together in a thick slurry, they form the basis of our relationship and the essential trust that underlies those relationships that helps them to flourish. And although we're in a time that church attendance and membership has become less important to many people, one reason being the erosion of trust in religious institutions, it is also true that people's religious inclinations never really go away. We humans have a strong need to seek answers to important questions about religious belief, about the afterlife, about how we create meaning. As trust in institution erodes, people still seek their own spiritual paths, their own practices. And our culture encourages this. We Northern Americans have strong sense of individuality and independence. And why not go it alone religiously as well? Ironically, enough for Unitarian Universalists, this cultural trait of individualism has been this central unresolved tension in the theology and culture. This tension can be seen in the way UU congregations are structured and with a strong emphasis on individual autonomy while also striving for unity and shared values. Reverend Fred Muir writes of the trinity of eras that has come to define Unitarian Universalism. They are individualism, exceptionalism, and allergy to authority. Muir offers an alternative to individualism through the concept of individuality, which acknowledges the very real differences between people without denying our fundamental interdependence. While individualism understands a person as separate, dependent on one another, individuality recognizes that each of us, varied as we are, exists within the context of mutuality, shared fate, and collective responsibility. See, humans are meant to live in community, to be in relationship with those around us. After all, we are created out of love, out of connection, and we live out our lives within a wide variety of relationships. We identify ourselves mostly through who the people we are to someone, a parent or a child, a spouse or a partner, a friend. We are managers or colleagues. We are fellow citizens, neighbors, church members. And when we use these labels for ourselves, and often have many such labels, we are defining ourselves according to our relationship to other people. We are so much more together participating in community life, participating in relationships than we can ever be by ourselves. The Reverend Rebecca Parker reminds us there is no life apart from life together. She says, within the embrace of sacred gathering places, people come together to form connections with one another, that which is holy and life-giving. A religious community encompasses walls, real or metaphorical, that can be portable, as with the ancient Hebrew tents of meetings, or permeable as the drug circles of standing stones and the enslaved African American hush arbor in the forest, or they can be solid and imposing as the buttress walls of Gothic cathedrals. Whatever the character of community structure, the function is to support the survival and thriving of people. But life is relational through and through. Everything exists in interaction and interdependence with everything else. The question is not whether we are social, connected beings. The question is how we shape our modes of being with one another and with the sources that uphold and sustain us. And so congregations have formed over the centuries in response to the need to belong and to seek answers to life's biggest questions. And they continue to form. There are a few ways in which religious communities bind themselves together. More traditional religious communities are bound by creed, by statements of belief that everyone is expected to ascribe to. These creeds, it is believed, hold the members accountable to the Word of God. Creeds such as the Apostles' Creed are the grout that holds communities together. It's the source of their authority. Since the 1600s, the Puritans, our spiritual ancestors, took a very different approach to the question of how to create and sustain their communities. This is probably because they never thought to question each other's theological beliefs, which they assumed were quite uniform. Instead, the Puritans took the approach of creating communities, made promises to each other about how they would function. The Puritans defined churches as groups of people who were covenanted together, to walk together in the spirit of mutual love. They traced the authority to covenant together all the way back to the earliest Christian history and the Hebrew Bible. They cited the second commandment to love our neighbors as ourselves, as well as the example of the early churches first gathered by Jesus' disciples. 17th century church members agreed to gather together regularly for mutual education and teaching by creating a church that was intended to support and guide them. They freely gave up their individual needs in support of a community based on mutual love. They sought structure and authority. They sought the ties that bound. Pastor and scholar Alice Blade Wellesley talks about free churches who established communities gathered not by religious or political rulers and hierarchies or traditions, but governed instead by the spirit of mutual love towards and with each other. Members practiced mutual love. Members tried to figure out and committed to the idea of love and used it to shape everything about the community, from how you join to what joining means to who gets to join and how decisions are made. Alice Blair says that one of the things our Puritan ancestors really got right was this, although there are things they got wrong, to evidence at how they perceived and treated native people who had lived longer than the continent before they arrived. In pursuit of freedom, the Puritans established the Massachusetts Bay Company because once the monarchy of England granted a charter to a corporation, the board of corporation was allowed to make their own decisions, elect their own leaders, and govern their own concerns as long as they didn't do anything illegal. So yes, corporations could make money, but more importantly, it was a way to set up shop in a faraway land and quietly govern themselves under the radar of the monarch, and conveniently out of the sight of the Church of England, who controlled all religious life. Whether they said it out loud or not, Puritans started to imagine a new kind of religious community in which members might gather together, learn and make decisions about their own communities, for their own churches, interpreting the Bible stories and imagining a new life together. For their time, this was a radically lay-led religious movement. Puritan families that settled together in the mid-1600s in Massachusetts came from different parts of England, and they didn't know each other, and they weren't sure what each other's religious ideas were. So after they first built their homes, they gathered to come together some basic agreements on how they were going to get along and how they were going to make decisions. In order to establish a religious community, the group set up weekly cottage meetings in people's homes to talk about important things. Surprisingly, these conversations were not about sin or salvation, heaven or hell, or who was going to be who was going to heaven or hell. But their church-forming conversations were about how to have a just, peaceful, civil society, because they believed that's what God wanted. The way they knew what God wanted was not because anyone else had written it down or because a bishop told them so, but they would know from their hearts and from their own conversations with each other. These committed groups of people prioritized love and loving ways. In practice, that meant what would hold them together was not specific set of beliefs, but their willingness to commit to being a love-centered community of members who promised to stay together for the long haul. As Alice Blair Wesley puts it, they decided that members of their free new church should be joined in covenant, a set of mutual promises grounded in the spirit of love. And hundreds of years later, Unitarian Universalists still say that we are not bound by creed, but by covenant, by the promises we make to one another, to offer our support to one another in sharing our life together. Here is a Universalist definition of covenant. A covenant is a mutual sacred promise between individuals or groups to stay in relationship, care about one another, and work together in good faith. In Unitarian Universalist traditions, we seek to raise the we above the I, the community above the individual. The upshot of the Puritan legacy is how Unitarian Universalists are in community together. The Puritans' way of being made its way to us as an understanding of what it means to be a free religious community that is entirely self-governing, no outside authorities, that the spirit of love must be at the center, and that this would be evident in how members treat each other, how members live in the world, how members do everything. Membership and promises made to each other are completely voluntary. Moreover, it was up to members to continually figure out together what love is asking of them, or as our spiritual ancestors thought, how to walk together. There is immense freedom for our religious ideas and beliefs, but there's also risk. Risk that we take away from the central piece of needing to be love-centered first and foremost in everything we do, including how we are with each other and how we interact with the outside world. Adrienne Marie Brown offers the spirit of this very succinctly when she suggests that emergent strategy, or strategies needed for this time, require trusting the people so the people will be trustworthy. Trust the people. Trust the community so the community can be trustworthy. It is the secret ingredient in the recipe for religious communities, according to our tradition. When we prioritize love, demanding life-sustaining love, transforming love, we must keep figuring out together what love is calling us to do next. Minister James Blake put it in a covenant in 1894, and many congregations use it. He wrote, "Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another." Dakota UU inheritors of this legacy are being asked to figure out and to prioritize above all, what is love asking us now? How can we know love more deeply and in new ways? Where is love asking us to go next? See, to join a congregation such as this means seeking service and connection and belonging and grounding and inspiration and spiritual growth and justice and intellectual stimulation and kindred spirits in the wider and to influence the wider community. This is to be called, what is it to be called? To committed love. A love that requires trust. Without covenant, either implicit or written down or recited, we will struggle to sustain ourselves in community. We may aspire to stay in covenant, but we often fail. We can forget the needs of the group, the community, or at least as important as as our individual needs and desires. There is inevitably a tension between the needs of the individual and the needs of the group. Covenant helps to hold that tension. It creates a North Star to help us navigate. It helps us to remember when something happens that threatens to divide the community, in which direction to turn. The direction that strengthens the community is the right direction. It can help us to trust the community and one another. But there's another kind of tension inherent in covenants. People are often surprised when Puritans are held as an example of a loving community, as we remember them as harsh and judgmental and unforgiving and highly problematic. The covenant they created focused exclusively on creating closed communities entirely for themselves. The grounds of trust and promises were used to exclude, to build walls between themselves and others, especially indigenous people. See, covenants can also be relied upon to prevent relationships instead of fostering them. But grout is not just used to build walls. It can also be used to connect and hold together the materials to make a floor. In creating covenants, we should use the grout to construct a foundation first, a floor that can support us all and anyone who wants to join us. A floor, a foundation that can be expanded and leaves no one outside the covenant. See, creeds are used to hold people accountable. It's easy to forget that aspect of community life, that of being accountable to one another. In a community based on covenant and not creed, to what or who should we be accountable? Unitarian Universalist communities see themselves as accountable to one another. But that implies that our accountability only extends to those within these walls. To what else are we accountable? How about love? Our historic focus on social justice, on trying to widen the circles of relationship and care, help us to broaden our sense of accountability to those we don't know, those who need our support in attaining true equality and justice. Rebecca Parker likes to say that such church communities built on trust and accountability to those around them can become communities of resistance. Strong, healthy, trustworthy religious communities can become communities of resistance. And we in the United States are in much need of these kinds of communities. My hope for us is that you will continue to strengthen your bonds, continue to building trusting relationships, and then bolstered by your own strength and held by your grout, you can take your place outside these walls, accountable to love and justice for all. Together, as a community, we are so much more than we are alone. May it be so.
I invite us to take a moment to think things over that we just heard while Kathleen plays for us Forever Evolving. Okay, so now this is the time in our service where we have a little discussion, a little reflection. Well, I just want to say that I loved the image of the mosaic in the ground. Anytime that I'm doing something that I feel is kind of drudgery for the church or anything now, I'm just going to tell myself, it's just the ground. It's just the ground. That's right.
I became appreciative of some of the new energy that's been happening here in the church and some of the folks that have stepped up to do new things. We have tech crew and social justice committee and the greeter team and social justice and all these things that are happening. And you can tell by the MailChimp, the announcement section has gone from like 2 things to like 18 or something. It's like, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Lots of craft.
Yes.
So, I can't remember, I had this discussion with Kelly before, that the different kinds of things that motivate people to do well. And it's not reward and punishment, and I think one of them was expectation, right? Or just,
I'm not remembering the conversation, but.
okay, but do you know what I'm saying? Is there a better word than expectation on that? But trust is an expectation.
Yeah.
And so trust is in that context one of the best ways to help people do well or to do better or to do good. So.
Anybody online care to chime in?
No, it's just as usual ones.
Okay. Back to the room. Anybody here have anything more to say? Well, I think you've given us lots to think about, so thank you for that.
Yes, very good.
And so I think we can move into our closing hymn. We stand for that, I believe. And we are singing hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land, number 121.
I'm making an intro, you pretty much know this one.
We'll build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may them create peace where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where clouds of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come build a land, my people we seek. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may them create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
I realized I did not read the scripture in the beginning, but it was just the covenant that says, love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace and to seek the truth in love and to help one another. I leave you with this. Trust the people, and the people will be trustworthy. Invite everyone to some fellowship with treats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye to our online folks.
You say goodbye, and I say
I think I'm missing a hand.
I know.
But I have a friend who wants to do this. You know? Okay, oh, yeah, yeah.
Dallas was the one that showed.
I think it's in the mail ship, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. Do you have any information about it?
Yeah, I do. Sure, but I can also.
Oh, sure.
First Unitarian Society.
I'm sure it is, but I'm not sure they're.
It says, please contact Bethany with registration questions, office.
I'll be like, no, we're not getting anything. And then we get there, and she goes, hey, Mom, can I get this?
No, pizza.
Interesting collection of socks. Well,